Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Today and for the next few weeks, the church reads from the letter to the Hebrews, and you heard it. Its author is not known. It's not St. Paul. It doesn't sound like him, does it? St. Paul never tells long, beautiful stories unless they're about himself. You can hear the difference. It was so gorgeous. The letter to the Hebrews dramatically paints a picture of Christ, the high priest, who is at the heart of our worship. Today's passage is part of a larger poetic section about the riches of faith. Faith, not a checklist, gotta believe it, gotta believe it, gotta believe it, but a stance. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. In Hebrews, we hear, as faith guided the matriarchs and patriarchs of our ancient biblical story, faith will guide us on our earthly pilgrimage. At the top of the list of those memorables, we have dear old Sarah and Abraham. Sarah, not able to bear children. Abraham, way beyond his prime, as good as dead, it said in the reading. It's not nice. Just because we're on Medicare doesn't mean, okay. So Sarah and Abraham are chugging along in their retirement, just leading gentle, quiet, faithful lives. They have no kids or grandkids to visit. They'd never been able to have children. While faith is the assurance of things hoped for, kind of seems like they'd pretty much stopped hoping, even as they kept faith in God, kept it alive. And then in this charming yet powerful story from Genesis, we see God, that ever generative. He didn't just rest on the seventh day and quit. God is always creating, generating, giving life. That ever generative, ever new divine heart smiles on Sarah and Abraham. Look at the stars in the dark sky. Look at the sweep of the Milky Way. So shall your descendants be. And it was so. When the Creator God issues a promise and an assurance, you can count on it. The covenant God makes with God's people through them, a covenant which Jews have kept alive, and which we Christians and also Muslims have signed on to later, is a covenant of protection and preservation. Now, we all hope for so many things, for ourselves, for our households, for our careers, for our church, for our community, and for the world. More often than not, these hopes are not just wanting more, but our hopes for some real improvement or deepening, of fuller understanding or direction or enrichment. Or sometimes they're hopes for repair or restoration in times of personal need, or for relief of the world's violence and instability. Our hopes are often the most personal and profound parts of ourselves. A sacred longing, sometimes laced with lament or regret. But in the meantime, no matter how high or low things are for us, our hopes glow within. Sometimes we find ourselves just hoping for more joy, more satisfaction, more meaning. Hoping for real delight, a new vitality in our life. Hoping for some new or renewed purpose, some way to be more alive right here in the present. to be truer and better to the self we know and recognize and care for inside. And I think, in a way, we hope for a glimpse that God is alive and well, that God really is present and acting in our circumstances, in our world. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. A scholar tells me that assurance means gives substance to or makes real. Hope, faith is what makes real the things hoped for. Faith is the stance which gives assurance, which gives substance to the things we've hoped for. And what would that look like? Christians are more than optimists. I may have said this when I was here in Holy Week. Optimists can always find a reason for hope. Our faith and our hope continue even when we don't see a reason, when we seem to be out of options. So it happens when we look back with gratitude on past times and places when things did work out, when we were our best selves. Faith sees that those hopes had been or are being made substantial or real. That's what Mary of Nazareth did. Remember? The angel Gabriel came and said, "You're going to be the mother of God, even though you're a virgin," and blah, blah. And she had clarifying questions. But in the end, her faith made real what she was hoping for, and she was always hoping to do God's will. And then later in her Magnificat, which we say at evening prayer every evening, she doesn't say, "I feel God's presence and power every moment." She doesn't. She looks back and she said, "Right, the Almighty has done marvels for me." So sometimes the faith that makes our hope real is looking back. Yeah, God came through for me in the past. It could happen again. By faith, what we presently hope for so often gives substance and makes real through the witness of the people around us. So one way is looking back. God has acted in my life. I think God might do it again. The other is to look around at the people around us. So that was part of this great epic eulogy in the letter to the Hebrews. All those faithful followers who by faith, even when they couldn't quite see its fulfillment, remained faithful. So for us, sometimes members of our family, when they're not driving us crazy, give us hope. And our friends, when we see them come together to celebrate and create, or to pull together when they face loss or disappointment, and embrace life even when the next steps aren't clear. Faith gives substance to our hopes when we see the dedicated service we or others are able to offer to those in need. Not just because they're in need, but out of our gratitude and our opportunity. What we hope for is given assurance and substance and made real by those in our inner circle when we experience them fully alive, full of delight and confidence, and when they value us, check in on us, cheer us up, listen to us, humor us, appreciate us, see through us, like and enjoy us, put up with us, forgive us, when they love us anyway and always. We have faith we have a substantial making real of our hopes through our interactions with those who love us. And it goes also for people who have never met us, but whom we admire and look up to. Now, many in our own time, including myself, these recent months, do not immediately see God's justice and present activity, which we hope for. But by faith, we affirm that, while not fully seen or fulfilled, God's care and protection are indeed present somehow, mysteriously, not fully seen, but still real and substantial. And often, again, that's by the witness of others who are courageous and truthful. This sounds so philosophical. Are we there? Are we okay? Okay. So I think some of this just comes on us. Oh my God. Oh, God was in this place, like Jacob said after his dream. Sometimes we're just surprised that our lukewarm faith has made our hopes real. But other times I would suggest, and that's why we're here this morning, and that's what I'm going to get to, because God's presence and power aren't always seen directly and immediately and clearly, even with all these witnesses to it, which I spoke about, where we catch glimpses, I think we can create intentional moments, planned and purposeful occasions in which to ready and open ourselves to finding out how near this life-giving, mysterious, divine presence actually is. We might begin anew to look for every chance to listen in a new way for whatever and however God might be calling us to be truly ourselves and to be truly God's. So some of you have heard of centering prayer or other kinds of prayer. We might try out having short periods of quiet listening and openness without a lot of words. We might read from our sacred texts. Episcopalians love throwing Latin around. Lectio Divina, sacred reading, just gentle, meditative, loving reading of the scriptures and listening to them, or also by hard, focused study of the scriptures. And also, we don't say it enough here, but art and music and short stories and novels and films and dance, all of these things reveal something about God's love in our life in ways we might not have imagined immediately. We connect our hopes to prayers of faith and hymns of assurance here when we gather for worship. An intentional time where we open up and make room and unclog our ears and hearts to receive what God may have for us that wasn't immediately apparent. In worship and common prayer, faith gives substance to. Faith makes real what we hope for. How does that happen? Through rituals. Rituals are events that have words and gestures. Birthday party. The gestures are, okay, turn off the lights. Then someone comes in with a cake, burning with candles. Then the words, and everyone knows them. They sing. Then they say, make a wish. And then everyone cheers and lights come back on. That's a ritual of words and gestures. That's what we do here. A sacred event made of words and gestures, baptism, communion, confession, confirmation, marriage, anointing. Our words and gestures point to, but also uncover, deliver, and make real and give substance to all we hope for. We hope for things like welcoming and belonging. We hope for guidance, connection, strengthening, nourishment, communion. The worship of God, our prayers, our church calendars and feasts, our wonderful music, these are all meant not primarily to uplift or warm us, but to transform and repurpose us, to give substance to our hopes. I'm quoting another writer here. Worship may bathe us in feelings that carry some sense of completion and lull us into being satisfied that this is all that's required of us. Yet worship requires of us an awed and candid engagement with God that is life-giving, community transforming, and world altering. Worship makes it possible for us to hear this text together, these texts today, and worship's communal confession may free us to go and do what this word sends us to do. Worship's communal praise may grant us perspective and strength for obedience, for giving substance and making real in the world and in our own lives all that we hope for. It's not a stretch to say that our whole knowledge of God revealed in Jesus, God's anointed one, comes to us primarily out of worship. In communities of prayer and service, the first followers of Jesus met to break bread and pray and welcome the mystery of the risen Christ present in their midst. Here in worship, we have little signs, little pointers, words of promise and challenge, lives and hearts given away, a shockingly modest yet generous meal, food for the tasks before us. Here we have the presence and person of Jesus, alive and triumphant in the face of every dashed hope, the real gift of all we hope for and need, feeding and clothing us, restoring us to real health, and sending us into the world. Here we become part of God's reign. And as I said last week, we discover our hidden identity of belonging to the divine kingdom, to the great army of the faithful, to the great nation. Those words are kind of cringy. Here we find our identity as belonging to a community, a tribe, to a people who've been selected, called out. The word church comes from ecclesia. Those who have been called out, chosen, called, gathered, a flock. And it occurred to me today, a flock need not just be of sheep. They could be of soaring birds. Lastly, today's gospel is a little less poetic. It sounds ominous, even spooky. It's supposed to be in the first or second Sunday of Advent or something. All this, be ready. But today it's actually reassuring. Jesus tells us that God is ready to act, ready to return at any moment. We're talking about God's time, not linear time, but God's time, present, pregnant, in the moment. God is ready to make real and give substance not only to our hopes and prayers, but also to God's own hopes and prayers for us. The evidence of God's presence and power, God's own hoped for healing of the world and of human hearts, still lies partially hidden in mystery, though at any moment can be made visible and tangible through hopes made real in lives of service, our part of the deal. made visible in us by our acting together as God's people. Jesus says, be ready, not stressed and on high alert, but simply aware, joyfully, thankfully, calmly ready, with an eye to recognizing and responding to the people and moments when hopes suddenly take on substance and are made real. Be ready, Jesus says, for sudden, unexpected break-ins of real substance in answer to our hopes and prayers. When the divine heart issues a promise and an assurance, you can count on it. Just look at the sweep of the stars. Finally, be ready, Jesus says, for encountering blessing when it is given. Be ready for each time in our lives that the bridegroom returns in a million large and small ways. Coming home to do what? To calm us down, to sit us down and wait on us and feed us. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom.